So full disclosure, our live event this morning did not tape. So I'm redoing this for our YouTube audience. So this is a taped version. So it's just going to be me talking today. We had a guest, Becky Reback, come on and talk a little bit and had some great ideas to share with our live audience. But we're going to give you as much as we can for those of you who are just tuning in on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to get right to it. Okay. Today's topic is on how to help your child to plan for long-term assignments. I'm so excited to talk with you today about this particular topic. So in this webinar, I'm going to show you exactly how you can help your child to long-term plan and specific ways to help your child with this so they can learn well. That's our mission here at Evolved Education Company. If you stay with us till the end, if you email us at the end, we will give you one of our wonderful PDFs, which is our aim to help you parents to dialogue with your kids around this topic. So there's a little long-term planning worksheet that you can use to start the conversation at the end. So turn off all your distractions, come on over to me, let's chat about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about why most kids fail to plan long-term. We're going to talk about typical approaches they take, some strategies and tools that work, and we'll do some Q&A. So my name is Mary Mealy. This is my company, Evolved Education Company, and I just always like to introduce myself to you to share a little bit about my background in the field of education. So I'm permanently certified special educator, and I've been working here in New York City in various capacities over the past 25 years. I'm also the parent of 3 children, so I'm very much in the weeds of doing this good work that I'm sharing with all of you for sure. So today's syllabus is going to go in this direction. So we're going to talk about why most kids fail to long-term plan, typical approaches that we take, strategies and tools, resources. We'll do a little Q&A. And of course, if you'd like to work with us, we're always happy to do so. This is what we do. Our business is a service-based business to help parents and children so that students can learn well. So we have a paradigm and a process that we teach and work within to make sure that all of this happens. So I'm going to get to the first module here, which is failing to long-term plan. So very often we give our kids these kinds of prompts, and we give them with really the best of intentions in terms of giving them some opportunity to engage in learning regarding the content we're teaching as teachers. And the issue really with an assignment such as this is that it is really top level in terms of its directions. So we're giving kids these very high level directions. Next Tuesday, you'll need to submit a diorama project, which displays the conflicts between the Axis and Allies powers during World War II. So just that in and of itself, for a kid's brain, what a kid's going to do is basically say, I have one thing to do. I have to make a diorama. And really within that direction, there are a myriad of smaller directions, often in the number of 20 or 30 tasks that we have to actually do to complete that one item that our kids know about. So it's really the system that we're working within here is setting our kids up for a lot of our challenges as parents. So just know that if you get an assignment like this as a kid, you're going to think in your brain, oh, I got one thing to do. It's due on Tuesday. I can totally do this on Monday. It's not a problem, because they don't really realize how many steps go into it. So on Monday night, you're going to have a kid who's going to say, I got to make a diorama. And then you get to figure out those 20 to 30 steps. And probably you're going to have to help them if they're younger, or if they're older, they're really going to struggle. It's going to be painful, and they're going to move through this in a really messy, unhealthy way. So there's a couple of things that I want to teach you, because I think that the way that Evolved Education works in its holistic viewpoint is that we look at what's happening at school, we look at what's happening at home, we look at the academics and the learning and the social and emotional and physical development of a child. And so our goals for our kids is to not just get the result or the A, but also to have another result, which is to move through this work in a healthy and strong way that uses executive functioning. And executive functioning is your ability to plan, organize, work overtime, work even through the emotional dysregulation of not wanting to do the work, that kind of stuff. So the key here is that we have to understand that there's a lot at play when we're talking about long-term planning. And I'm going to get into a lot of this today in our talk. So the first observation that I notice when we work on this is that the kid completes their long-term assignments in one sitting, and this sitting occurs the night before the assignment is due. The kid doesn't really understand what needs to be done for the project, and they muddle through it with some clarity, but not a lot. And often parents with great intentions are jumping in just to kind of hold a lot of that responsibility so that the child can be successful going in. And we believe we're helping, and we believe that we are doing what we need to be doing. But in actuality, this is part of our challenge here, is to understand it's not that helpful in the long term. So please understand too that a child who's working in the last minute nature, or an adult even who's working in the last minute nature, is getting a strong dopamine and adrenaline hit from their last minute work. This is real deal stuff. And really, when kids tell you, it's so much better when I just do it at the last minute, there's truth to this. There's real truth to all of this, because it's the feedback that they're getting in this environment is positive. They're having a lot of energy around something they don't really know what they're doing. There's a lot of confusion, overwhelm, negative feelings, negative experiences, and the adrenaline is helping them get through it. And so they're telling you, it works for me. Well, it does work for them. So you have to also take them for what they're saying, which is the truth, right? And not sort of come at it and saying, no, you're not at your best. That is discounted totally, right? The other thing that happens is when we work at the last minute, we actually are prone to do it again because we don't really know any better. And the system is not set up so that we do it any differently. So this is really another major, issue that we have. So when we get the feedback from the work that we just did last minute with all of that adrenaline and yuck and sort of help from everyone, and it wasn't really that successful, we end up getting a pretty good grade. Like we get a B maybe, or we get a C, and we're like, oh, well, that was pretty good. Like, woo, at least that's over with. Goodbye, right? So the feedback that we get is actually additionally contributing to where we're staying, which is in this space of doing this work in this unhealthy last minute nature, right? And kids can't really see any difference. So we can't really teach them that, oh, if you just, calendar it on Monday and do a little bit on Tuesday and do a little bit on Wednesday, do a little bit on Thursday, you're going to, trust me, you're going to see something different. It's really not a simple fix like that. And I see a lot of tutors and a lot of well-intentioned parents doing things that are really not addressing this issue in a way that's going to make a long-term transformative impact, which is what we really want, right? So there's a thought here that I have, which is that most kids never get to experience a successful long-term project flow. They just don't, because they're given parts of these tools, or they're given a little bit of support, or they're given just a little bit of guidance. And it really isn't going through this process in the best of ways, because there's limited support that's actually happening in actuality. So there's some typical approaches that we are taking with our kids that are really not helping anyone, which is that we're continuing to work last minute. Our kids are confused, they're overwhelmed, they're not at their best. They don't actually have the support over time. And it's awfully limiting in terms of the strategies that they have. So a lot of times too, we used to have parents calling in for tutoring last minute. We have a test tomorrow. There's a project tomorrow. Again, well-intentioned, but if you want to have a child armed with tools in the executive functioning realm over time, there are ways we can do this differently. So let's get into that, right? We don't want to procrastinate, the other thing that we tend to get into that cycle, right, of procrastination. So The first thing is that you want to create your child's roadmap. You want to be critical of the feedback that they're getting. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to acknowledge it. You're just going to be critical of it. So, yes, your child's telling you this is how it works best for me. It works best for me to do this at the last minute. And that there's some truth to that, right? Because they're getting pretty good feedback from school. Maybe they're getting great adrenaline. They have a lot of energy right before the due date. It's really feeding them. So there are things that are working. So we can write those things down, like pros for working last minute. They're there. It's the truth. Then there's also all these cons that they may not be really aware of, right? So your job is to point them out. Well, let's see, if you work really last minute, that means you're not sleeping enough, which means you're more prone to getting sick, which means you're more prone to missing school, which means you're more prone to getting weaker grades later on, which means you're more prone to being confused for a longer period of time, right? So we can lay out some of this for them, because part of a weaker executive functioning system that most kids have is that they don't always see the consequence of what one action leads to another, which leads to another. So we as parents can write it down for them, really, right? So the other thing is you want to talk with them often. This is not a conversation to have one time. You want to have many conversations about what's the best way to go through this work for you and how can we make this happen. And this is also where tutoring and ongoing tutoring and coaching and executive function work can be so helpful, because it takes about 6 months to a full year of coaching to move a student into a totally new habit set. So it's really helpful when we get a student who's really committed to doing this kind of work and talking about the best way to go through the work, right? And committing to it, because it's one thing to set up a system and it's another thing to actually keep it going when it gets a little routine and not so exciting, right? So we also want to make sure we name some objections here and really address them. So, you know, when you do work at the last minute, right, you don't have time to do some things that you probably never have done before. Maybe you've never actually asked your teacher questions. Maybe you've never had an opportunity to clarify something or to not be confused about something. Maybe your child is starting to internalize that they're not great at history because all of their projects have turned out so awful in terms of how they've been done. And in fact, they're fantastic at learning history and conveying their creative sense around it. So it's just a matter of opening up a new possibility and a new lens and a new way of thinking about this, right? I also want to talk a little bit about due dates, because I've done a lot of work with this with my students in my learning specialty practice, in that we take a look at due dates. And there's something to be said here. Like when I started to work with one of my students around due dates and the fact that it works for him, like it's so cool to look at something that's really working for a kid, because then I'm so curious, like, why is this working for this kid? And I found out that it's because of this adrenaline. And then I said, well, what if we could just like trick your brain into having adrenaline for your mini deadlines? Like, for example, what if you just said you have to finish finding all the quotes for this paper by Monday night? Like, non-negotiable in your mind, you know that someone's going to come and they're going to be looking for this and it's got to be done. You're not allowed to do it later. You're not allowed to go back. That's it. It's done deal. So a little bit of this is like how committed a kid can be to an idea like this, but hey, it totally works. And actually I use it in my work life all the time since I started using it with my students. And when I have to get an article done or I have to get a PowerPoint done, I say, all right, I got 15 minutes. Like I got to get this done. And it heightens me. It gets my energy going and I'm able to focus better. I'm able to work in a stronger way. So why not use it? Right, to help your kid and really acknowledge it and teach it to them. Say, you know, there's something about this, like you're not off mark here. You're doing this for a reason. Like, good for you for figuring this out. Like, it's not easy. And this is as best as you could bring it to. Like, great, let's use some of this to your advantage, right? There's also this Pomodoro method that I also use in my work practice a lot, and I use it with my students a lot. You can Google it, it's a thing. And it's really where you work for 20 minutes and then you take a minute or two off and you take a brain break. You just go and, walk or talk with someone, or it's really not about being dormant in your brain. Like you don't want to necessarily go on a video game necessarily, but you want to change the way and the intensity that you're working with your brain, similar to like interval training, if you ever do that. So what you do is you're on for 20 minutes and you're just like focused and work, 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 work. And then you get a break for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Then you go 20 minutes, work, 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 take a break. And it really, really works. And kids who are supported to do this will do it. Sometimes that actually means that you have to have your tutor be with your kid while they're doing this. So they could actually see, like, I'm going to hold your hands and we're going to do this. And I want to see how you actually feel when you're doing it. And when they realize that it actually works and, oh, wait a second, this is different, then they're more apt to use it on their own later. So sometimes the investment of having that support person work with your child can pay off if you're willing to make that session work in a way that's a little different than maybe typical, where maybe you're used to having your tutor come in and teach you something or be very much in the driver's seat. Sometimes it's better for a kid to actually move through a process and for the tutor just to be there to say, keep going, like, yes, or no, 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 go this way instead. Or, oh, actually, now's the time to take a break. Now let's do it. So there's a guidance there and the kids get confidence because they're supported. So there's a couple of strategies. This is pretty text heavy, so just take a screenshot or pause or something if you'd like to. But essentially, here's a couple of like really awesome strategies that I've employed with students. And I don't use them all the time for every kid, but certainly if you write out all you have to do from start to finish, right? Those hidden tasks, like I have to go find my book. I have to find quotes that are going to support my thesis. I need to find 5 quotes to support my thesis. I need to say why those quotes actually do support my thesis. Then I need to draft my paper. Then I need to revise my paper. I need to make a meeting with my teacher to go over the paper. I need to make additional revisions after that, right? So we're really like scripting out what it is that we need to be doing. Sometimes kids need directions into such a degree, like I need to open my computer. I need to sign into my Google Docs and here's my password. And then I need to open this document. I need to make sure it's in this folder. I need to make sure that I have 5 quotes. Like sometimes they need really, really, really specific directions. And the more clear we are, the stronger they're going to be able to move through that process. Eventually, this will become part of their process. But if we don't work them through it, it can't usually make any real impact on their brain. Or if we hold on to the practice, right, as parents, and we say, "Oh, I'll do these 5 things, and you do those 5 things." Again, not helping at all because the child is never part of whatever it is that you're holding on to. You great, good for you for having the great executive functioning, but it's not teaching your child anything, right? The other thing that Becky was saying when she was on earlier this morning was just that whenever she puts tasks down, like these are the tasks that you're doing, she always ties it to a bigger goal. So she makes a big goal with the student. Like maybe our big goal is that we're going to work overtime because this is going to help us to do our very best work, or we're going to work overtime because then we can be healthy and have more sleep and have more time to play sports. Whatever that sort of like bigger goal and why we're doing what we're doing, she says, write that down too. So kids are anchored to like the why, which I think is really good. Okay. Calendar the tasks. So I do use calendaring with kids all the time from grade 4 up. We do a lot of calendar work and I'm a big fan of like one system. So we always go to one calendar. That's it. Not 4 calendars, not the planner and the online and the whatever, just one of them. And sometimes I calendar the tasks with kids, but Sometimes kids need a little bit of flexibility. So sometimes we'll actually list out all of those tasks and then I'll just block time on their calendar and they get to work through however many tasks they had energy for. This also helps them to check their self-regulation. So if they have a lot of energy, they might get through 5. If they don't have a lot of energy, then they just get through 1. Either way, they're feeling successful, right? And they're able to be a little more flexible based on how they're feeling in the moment. So that's a nice additional tweak on a strategy that I've used. Play with those mini due dates. Again, sometimes kids might need a fake like accountability person. So, a tutor can be that person. I've definitely been that person for many of my students where I've been looking for something that they said they were going to do. And if they don't, then I call the parents and I say, oh, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So bye to the video games, bye to the phone, bye to the other things that are privileges, right? They're not meeting their responsibilities. The other thing is just to get support. So again, we often really require our kids to have a lot more responsibility than their executive functioning is really ready for. So it's okay if your kids need the support, but just be careful on how it's actually going, because we want to make sure that the child is in the driver's seat and that we're not doing for them and that they have that opportunity to develop those executive functioning skills. Okay. Focus on the benefits. So actually Becky also jumped in here and was talking a lot about how she's always talking about, the positives. And again, I spoke a little bit about this where we're coming always from areas of strength. So I'm always really congratulatory of kids, even if they're totally stressed and bombing out with this long-term planning stuff, because something is working there. They've gotten something to work for them in some way. And that it's usually the adrenaline, but sometimes it's other things. And I just congratulate them like, wow, you're used to working through something like really in a hard way. So this is actually not going to be that hard. I promise you. Like, I know you can go there and good for you for being able to go there, but let's make this so much better. Please, let's do it. We can do this. And we can focus on the benefits, and again, congratulating them for any of these actions. Like, wow, you had time to ask your teacher today. How good did that feel? Like, come on, how good did that feel? And I spend a lot of time when I'm working with students, spending time punctuating those new ways of working through their schoolwork. So if they met with a teacher and now they got a bunch of questions answered and their teacher got to know how serious they are about the subject and there's a great relationship forming, I make sure we spend time in session talking about that and just taking a pause and being like, how good does that feel? It feels, this is a fun time. Like, aren't you having fun? And because I want to replace some of the other positive feelings and feedback that we have been getting with that last minute work, which is really hard to overcome, with some of these other smaller great feedback moments. So I think it's really important that we also understand that this is a process. It usually takes 6 months to a year to see a child with weaker executive functioning move into stronger executive functioning. And that's with consistent twice a week tutor, teaching and guidance, because we're asking kids to try on new habits, and that's hard. And sometimes they have to really do one habit and then add another one and add another one. And there needs to be many habits that are addressed in order to be successful. So that's why it takes so long sometimes. I talked about the calendaring, which we already covered. And then the last thing is just that, hey, listen, it's okay to smile and laugh and have fun with this. And I also really want to stress, whenever you're working on something that's really challenging with your kids, make sure you look at the whole picture and put in some stuff in there that's fun. So if your kid is in school all day, there's a huge executive functioning demand there. Then they come home, they have to work on their executive functioning work there, they have to do their homework. There has to be some time in here where kids are filled up with something that's really, really differently done, and talk with your child about what that could be. Maybe it's, playing with their friends. Maybe it's going out and doing some kind of activity that's safe right now. We're in the pandemic at the time of this taping, so things are a bit crazy. But, find some things that are really fun and exciting. I think that's really important. So the last thing that we talked about was just that, weekends are great times to plan. So we can really use the weekends to get organized and to have a system that works for the student. So this is also a great time to work with an executive functioning coach, a tutor, somebody who can really show a student how to set forth a routine here to help them. So if you're watching this right now, this is a taping of our parent education series where we talk each month about a different topic. And we are also a company that serves families and students, and we offer one-to-one tutoring, including executive function coaching. We also have parent education consultation. So you as a parent could book time with one of our specialists to talk through what's going on with your child and do a deeper dive into what strategies you as a parent could be using with your child to move things differently if you want to. And we also have school placement advisement from TWO's programs through high school, mostly in New York City area. The other two services can be done really anywhere. So if you're watching this and you'll live anywhere, we do it all anywhere, no problem, especially in the day of remote work. So I welcome you to email Stephanie. She will set up a complimentary 15-minute phone call with you just to chat through what your needs are, how we can help, what we do, and all of the things. And it really is our pleasure to be with you today. I hope these ideas were helpful, and I hope that we get to see you in our future videos and also webinars that we have at our company. Talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye.